So basic components of a class would be some data. Java documentation officially refers them to data attributes or data fields. And constructors. Constructors are special methods allowing object to be initialized from the beginning of its life cycle. And also regular methods. Regular methods which will provide the behavior of our object. Object creation we already have seen a lot. You know, we said new scanner. We've been creating some objects in CIS 123, and every time we need to create an object, another word for it would be instantiate an object. We would say, or instantiate a class, right? Instantiate a value of that class. We would have to say, we would have to use the new operator. So I wonder what to choose for our today's demonstration. Let's perhaps maybe use this as an example, how this approach would look like in real life. So let's create, say, file, new project, right? And we're still just using console applications in this class. So perhaps I can create a new project, and forgot to change the name of my main class, but that's okay, I can live with it. Or I can probably rename it here. Refactor and rename, and I will say main app, because I really kind of, why choose a different name if main class represents the main method primarily. So we'll say refactor, and now I changed it. All right, so did a little mistake, then was able to fix it. That's good. So the next thing that I'm going to do is that instead of writing my code in the main method, I will go to the package view, and we'll say in this particular package, I will create a new class, and I will name it a locomotive. Right? All right. So that's the name of the class, and I will say finish. And what happens is that under the same package declaration, a new class is created. And my habit is to use this comment at the end of the class declaration. This class declaration, which will represent this particular type of objects, does a number of things. First of all, you should realize that each time you introduce a new class in your project, it will represent a brand new data type. So once in place, once class is defined, in reality, it defines your user-defined type, the new data type. So I may say, I don't know, what should I use as an example of the data? Say data attributes. We could say perhaps int, and we'll keep it private. Private int max speed, right? The maximum speed that they can have. So at runtime, if I want to create this thing at runtime, perhaps in my main method, if I go to my main program, let me just create a little bit more space here. Once you start using multiple source files, I would strongly recommend using this feature where you can right-click and you can display documents in separate tabs in the editor. This new document tab group allows you to do something like that. It's very nice, right? Especially if you can, I'm using kind of enlarged font for the presentation, but at home, obviously, your font is probably much smaller. You can fit much more in your screens, and you can look at things side by side. And so I have this class named locomotive. It is also declared public. Public declaration of a class is the most typical declaration of the class, and it simply suggests that this brand new data type is available for the rest of the application to be used as designed, and there should be no restriction on its use. Very straightforward. And again, I didn't type public. By default, NetBeans, when I said just create this brand new source files for me, it created public class declaration. The class declaration, from the syntactical standpoint, has to include keyword class, has to provide the name of the class. The name of the class, of course, has to be a single word. You can use a combination of characters and digits, but the first character has to be an alphabetical character. And then you use an opening and closing brace to indicate the body of the class, so that inside those curly braces, from the starting from the name and ending at the end of the class definition, you essentially create what is the scope of this class, or what is the body of this class. We say that in scope of the class there could be data attributes found, and some methods perhaps also can be found. So to demonstrate, and by the way, also Java requires that each public class has to be stored in a separate file, number one. Number two, the name of that file has to be matching exactly the name of the class. So if this is public class name locomotive, it better be stored in Java file name locomotive.java, and not, xyz.java. Otherwise, compiler is not going to like it. So Java is sort of pretty deeply digs into the file system, and is actually aware of the class, both class name and the file name. Whereas if you compare it to the C++ programmer project or program, if you have files with classes in C++, the compiler really doesn't care. As long as there are files which contain some classes, it'll take them. Java is much more selective and demanding on the names of packages, which represent subfolders on the file system, and also class names, which also correspond to the names of Java files. Okay, so to finish this little section of demonstration, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use locomotive as the brand new data type. And to create it, I must use the new operator. Now, the syntax here suggests the following. The loco will be something that we refer to as. So let's kind of take it apart. Anytime we say locomotive, this is user-defined data type officially. By doing this, we're defining new user-defined type, new type of data. The new operator here, and I'll try to kind of write it below. The new operator does two things. Number one, allocate memory. Number two that the new operator does it invokes constructor. We actually never defined anything that we say constructor in our class. But even if we did not define it, there is a default constructor supplied by the compiler. It's a method which we're soon going to be using exclusively, using the appropriate syntax. But at this point, just want to say that the new operator does those two things. And perhaps we could also sort of unofficially say something else. Number 3, it returns the address of object in memory. Try to resize this. This is sort of like not an action, but perhaps the outcome of new, a successful new. A successful new will do those things. So let's record this segment.